Hi everybody, this is Max with Enlight Automotive, and today I'm going to show you how to install our massive photon generator xenon HID system into this 2015 Toyota Camry. So we're going to put our xenon system into the low beam headlight, which you see is on now. What you're looking at here is a factory halogen, and we're going to swap that over to our xenon HID system. Just for reference here, what you're looking at on the wall there is the beam pattern from the factory halogen bulb. So take reference of that, and once we swap it over to the xenon system, we'll take a look again and see what the improvement looks like. One more thing to note, that this video will only be applicable to those Toyota Camrys that have factory halogen low beams. Some of the more high-end models have a different lighting system, so this video will not apply to all Toyota Camrys, but if you have factory halogens, we can take care of those and swap them over to a xenon system. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and pull the hood latch inside the vehicle, and then if you reach under here with your finger, there's a little tab, and you're going to pull straight up to unlatch it, and the hood will rise by itself. And the installation will begin from here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the HID kit that we have for the 2015 Toyota Camry. Starting off with the ballasts here on the left and right side. These are our 35 watt rapid start ballasts. They are extremely high quality ballasts. They have 64-bit digital microprocessor. They also feature a rapid start ignition circuit, which will allow the bulb itself to heat up much faster and get brighter much faster than traditional HID systems. The rate that the brightness increases is comparable to OEM systems with these ballasts and in combination with our bulbs here. And then just that, moving on to the bulbs, these are our premium H11 type HID bulbs. These particular bulbs here are 4500K. So you'll get a pair of those with the kit. You'll also get a set of mounting brackets and bolts. Those are for the ballast. And our Alpha Series premium relay harness. This is a really nice relay harness. It's very different than a lot of the other systems that are on the market. They have thicker 14 gauge wires, where most other harnesses have 18 gauge wire. It's fully waterproof. There's silicone water seals in all the connectors. The fuse, which connects to the positive terminal of the battery, that is fully waterproof. It's a fully molded component. And also, the relay itself is a waterproof relay pack. It's a heavy duty relay, and it's got silicone seals on the bottom there. So we will go over the details of all the connections on this a little bit later in the video. But that's what you'll get with the kit, so let's go ahead and get started. So once you've got the hood open, first thing we're going to want to do is take the factory bulbs out of the headlights. We're going to go ahead and start on the driver's side. If you're like me, you don't like getting your hands dirty, go ahead and put on a set of nitrile gloves or similar gloves. So coming around to the battery here, right there you're looking at the factory H11 bulb. So it's very easy to remove. You're just going to reach your hand in. There is a tab on the factory plug. You're going to push down. You can see right there. Push down on it, and then slide the whole connector down towards the ground. Pops off just like that. And now to remove the bulb, go ahead, twist it counterclockwise, which is that way. Pull it out. And there you go. You might just want to keep these aside somewhere. Try not to touch the glass. That will shorten the lifetime of the bulb. So let's go ahead and do the passenger side. This car is really easy to do because there's plenty of space to get your hands. I've worked on cars that are much more difficult than this vehicle to do, so installation should be a breeze on this. Again, here on the passenger side of the vehicle, go ahead and push this tab down, and then slide the whole connector towards the ground. It pops off very easily like that. Same as the last time. Turn it counterclockwise, pull it out, and there you have it. Here you can see that we removed one of the bulbs from its housing. To separate this, you just pull the clear case away from this black base here, and then once you separate the two, it'll look like this, and you can just slide off the black base from the bulb itself here. So we're going to go ahead and slide this in to the the driver's side socket first. Coming back over here. Again, be very careful not to touch the glass of the bulb. If you're not wearing gloves, don't touch the glass. The fingerprints will leave oil on the glass, which will reduce the lifetime of the bulb. So again, there's the socket there. You just want to gently guide the bulb into the socket, line up the 3 prongs, and then you're going to twist it clockwise this time, like you're tightening a screw. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Twist it. It might take just a little bit of force because this is a nice thick seal here. Sometimes it helps to push in towards the headlight and twist at the same time. So there you go, lock it into place like that. When it's locked into place, you should be approximately vertical or pretty close to vertical. Once you get that in, that's it. So we'll just leave that there for now, and we'll go ahead and do the other side. So here we are on the passenger side of the vehicle. Same thing. You take the glass bulb here. Don't touch the glass, but just carefully glide it into the socket. Might need to rotate it until you get the 3 prongs lined up. Push it in, and then you're going to twist it clockwise to lock it in place. So we've got it locked in place, and that completes the installation of the bulbs. Now we're going to move on to the ballast and the relay harness. We're going to go ahead and mount these brackets here onto the ballast. I've already identified a suitable location to mount the ballast, and that will require the brackets to be oriented on the right side of the ballast. So the way that we're going to do that here, we're going to flip it over, and then you can just line up the bracket holes like that. You can use a washer and a bolt here, and then once you get those things on, you can thread the bolts in there. These ballasts come pre-tapped, so these bolts will go right in. I'm going to go ahead and set up this ballast and this ballast together, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Once you've got everything secured here, you can go ahead and use your 10mm socket to tighten these bolts up here. And this is what it should look like. So you got the bracket on the right side on both of them. If you flip it around, just like that. And I'll go ahead and show you the mounting location for these in the vehicle. Here on the driver's side, the mounting location is going to be right where this bolt is. So here's the battery bracket, the battery tie down. And we're going to loosen this bolt up with our 10mm socket. We're going to bend the brackets on the ballast to slide and fit right under here. So there's going to be kind of an L that will slide under here, and the ballast will hang in this area here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. So just for reference here, you can see that this bracket is bent like an L. You can do it with your hands. It's pretty easy. You don't need any tools to do it. And you can slide it under just like that. And just need to jimmy it around a little bit. But there you go. Once we put the bolt in, you can see that the bracket here is lined up with the hole, and we'll clamp everything down. You do want to be a little bit cautious. There is what I believe is an ABS module, not an ABS, but an airbag sensor here. So stay away from that. Try not to bump it or touch it or anything. They're pretty robust, but just a word of caution: don't hit it with a hammer. All right, so I'm going to put that bolt in. So now I'll put this bolt back in here. You can see the bracket bends around the frame, and it's not touching this airbag sensor. You want to feed the cables that are coming out of the ballast on the right side over to this empty space over here where we took the bulb out. Also, I went ahead and made the connection between the high voltage output side of the ballast to the bulbs here. So the cables that are coming off the back of the bulb, you can plug them into the ballast at this stage if you wish, and eventually everything will get tucked away over here, and we'll use the zip ties to secure it. But let's go ahead and mount the passenger side, and then we will do all the cleanup as the last step. Here we are on the passenger side. Now, you can mount the ballast wherever you want as long as it's in a secure location. It's not going to be hitting any of the turning engine components or any of the pulleys or anything like that. But I'm going to pick this particular location. It's not the most convenient place, but it will make for a nice clean installation. So here you see that there's a bracket that holds an AC line and some other wiring here, and there's a 10mm bolt here that we're going to take out, and we're going to mount the bracket onto that bolt. You can already see that I fed the ballast and the cables for the ballast under these two factory harnesses here, and it's a little tricky to do, but if you take the cables and you just gently lift up on these here, you can slide everything under and tuck it away, and it'll make for a nice clean installation. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt and then bolt the bracket down, and then we'll proceed from there. Should also mention that now is the time to get out your socket extension here. I found it difficult to access that bolt down there without an extension. I am cheating, I'm using an impact gun instead of a hand socket because it's faster, but I'm going to go ahead and use that. Loosen that bolt. Take that out, and now I'll just go ahead and slide the bracket. I'm gonna put it into the second slot here. Slide it up with a hole. Put the bolt back in. Let's get it lined up the way you want it, and go ahead and tighten it back down. Oops. There you go. Now you got a good solid mounting location for the ballast, and also the factory bracket here is nice and secure as well. Just like the driver's side, I made these connections over here between the high voltage output side of the ballast and the bulbs. You can make that connection now if you wish, and let's move on to the relay harness. Okay, on to the relay harness. This is the most feared part of the installation. We get lots of questions. Why do we need a relay harness? What's the purpose of it? I know that there are kits out there where you can plug the ballast directly into that guy right there, the factory headlight plug, and it'll turn on, you'll get light out, etc., etc. But there are two key reasons why we run a relay harness. So let's go ahead and answer those questions. So let's take a look at how the power runs through the vehicle. If you take a standard HID system and you plug it directly into the socket here, it is drawing power through the car's factory electrical system, through the factory harness, through all the switches and such and the relays that are integrated with the vehicle already. You have to keep in mind that HID ballasts and HID systems in general, they do not function like a normal halogen bulb. A halogen filament is just a resistor, that's all it is. You pump electricity through a resistor, it gets hot and it emits light. An HID ballast, this guy here, okay, this is much more complicated than a standard halogen bulb. There's there's digital microcontrollers in here, there's capacitors, there's resistors, all kinds of things. And it behaves very differently than a halogen bulb. So the factory relay harness and electrical system, it's not designed to handle the type of power demands and also just the overall electrical response of an HID ballast. So the number one reason why we run a relay harness is to protect the vehicle's factory electronic system from anything that is going on with the HIDs. The HIDs will operate independent of the car's factory electrical system, with the exception of this just turning on a switch, which is the relay pack. The second reason why we run a relay harness with our HID systems is to draw power directly from the battery. When we draw power directly from the battery, this ensures that the ballast and the entire system has an adequate supply of power at all times whenever they are on. The most demanding time for any HID system is during the startup procedure. That is the initial ignition of the bulbs from a cold start. The way that these ballasts achieve a very rapid startup time, or I should say a short startup time comparable to OEM systems, is that they run the bulbs at a higher level or a higher power level during the startup procedure. This heats them up faster and thus they get brighter quicker. So that puts excess stress, I shouldn't say stress, it requires more power than typically drawn from this socket here for just the first couple of seconds of startup time. Yes, they're 35 watt ballasts and factory halogens are 55 watt, but for that first 2 or 3 seconds they're drawing between 8 and 10 amps, which is more than what is typically drawn through here. So for that reason, especially, we are going to use a relay harness and draw power directly from the battery, which doesn't care how, if you're drawing 8 to 10 amps or 20 amps or whatever from it. Before we put the relay harness into the vehicle, let's go ahead and look at all of the connections on it so you can see what they all look like, and we'll talk about where they go. All right, we'll start here. This thick red wire with the fuse holder on it, this is the main power wire. This is where all the power for the HID system is going to come from. This will attach to the red positive terminal of the battery. On the opposite side of that, we have the primary ground cable. This ring terminal, which is, it's got black wires on it, this will connect to the negative side of the battery. This is the primary ground. We have a secondary ground on the other side of the harness, but this one will connect to the battery. Here we have the relay trigger plug. This will connect to your car's factory headlight plug, which is, let's go ahead and look at it here. This guy right there with that green plastic piece in it. When you turn your lights on inside the vehicle, the car's factory switching system will send power to that green plug, and then it will connect to here, and it will turn on the relay. All the relay is it's a big fancy switch. It says, oh hey, we got power coming in from the car's factory harness, so let's activate the rest of the system. Once that's on, it will draw power from the battery, from these two primary connections, and send it out to the rest of the relay harness and into the ballast. So this connection here, which will be it'll be supplied with an H11 connector, so you don't have to use any adapters or anything like that. This will plug directly in to your factory headlight socket. Also on the side, we have the ballast connector. So again, once the relay is turned on, it will send power to the ballast here. What you're looking at here is the ballast connector. This will plug into the power side of the ballast. The white wire in this particular case is positive, black one is negative. You have to make sure that you line up these wires in the correct orientation on the ballast. If you flip them around like this and you try to plug it in, it's not going to work. The ballast will only work in the correct polarity. There is a positive and negative sign on the ballast. There's markings so you can see. And as long as you match these top tabs here with the locating tab on the ballast, it will be in the correct orientation. Okay, moving on. This long cable here stretches over to the, in this case, the passenger side of the vehicle to power the other ballast. Again, this plug looks identical to the other one. It will also connect to the ballast on the passenger side. Now over here we have a secondary ground. It's essential that you run this secondary ground. This offers a shorter ground path to chassis versus running all the way back through to this cable here. Now we've designed this harness in a specific way, so this connector here is actually directly connected to the battery, but we offer a secondary ground with another chassis ground for improved performance. Let's go ahead and start making some connections here. So first thing you want to do, go ahead and take off this plastic cover here. If you just pull up, it might take some wiggling, it'll come off. And we are going to loosen this nut here and slide on the positive red cable, and then tighten the nut back on. Also, on the ground side, we're going to loosen up this nut here, slide on the ground cable, the ground ring terminal onto it, and then go ahead and tighten it back down. I'm gonna make those connections, and I will show you what it looks like when it's done. You also want to be careful when you're doing this. If you break connection between the actual battery terminal and the ring terminal connector here, and it will cut power to the vehicle altogether. You may have to reset your radio if you do that, and some other things might need to be reset, like the windows. So to avoid that, I usually like to keep contact between the terminals and the connectors at all times. If you loosen this and you take it all the way off, you will break power, and you may have to reset your radio and windows and other things like that. So usually what I do is I just loosen it, put the and I'll keep this on, slide on the ring terminals, tighten it back up, and everything works fine. I've made the two connections here. So here the ground cable is connected to the battery. positive side, you can see how I've routed things here. I routed the red wire kind of behind the battery tie down here. Here's the fuse. There's the ground wire. I've routed it under the main ground cable. It's a little difficult to see. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And I brought both cables onto the right side of the battery here. Now here, to remove this nut, you're going to want to use your 10mm wrench. Not the socket wrench, but one of these guys here, just a regular wrench. I couldn't fit a socket wrench on that side. So there's that, and let's go ahead and move on to the rest of the harness. The next two connections that we'll make, remember this guy here? That one will plug into the factory headlight socket, that's green one. And then we're going to take the ballast connector, which looks like this, and connect it to the power input of the ballast. Now this is the locating / locking tab that I was talking about. You can see that right where my thumb is. It sticks up. You want to make sure that these locking tabs line up with that. Just made those connections here. This one takes a little bit of pressure to put in, or to push in. So usually I'll grab it kind of like this and squeeze both sides together to click it in place. And just as I mentioned before, you can see the locking tabs are all lined up here, and there are marks on the ballast. You might be able to see it. Let's see if I can get a better angle. Positive, white, negative, black. If it's reversed, it will not work. The ballast will not turn on. Alright, now let's go ahead and make the connections on the other side of the vehicle. Here I'm going to route the long cable that comes out of the relay pack across to the passenger side of the vehicle. So I put it under the battery tie down here. Feed it this way. Here's the factory air scoop. I just fed the cable underneath it, running it here by the radiator cap, and I'm actually going to go ahead tuck this under this piece of plastic here. You just squeeze on it a little bit. It snugs under there very nicely, keeps it locked away. There you go. See, it gets tucked away under the slip here. Just slide it under. And here we have our other connection. I'm going to grab the power cable from the ballast, which is this guy here. Make that connection, and then we'll do the ground after that. Here the connection has been made. Again, just make sure that you line up the positive white wire with the positive side of the ballast. The connectors are really only designed to go in one way in such a fashion that they actually lock in place. Yes, you can take this connector, flip it upside down, and you'll still be able to slide it into the ballast side part of the connector, but the polarity will be wrong and it will not lock in place. It will just slide in and out. When you put it in the correct orientation, it will lock. So if you try to pull them apart, it's not going to come apart because of this locking tab here. With that done, now we're going to take this secondary ground here, and we're going to use this convenient factory ground location, which is right here, right next to the ABS module. You can pick either one, either this one or this one will work. You're going to need a 10mm socket or a 10mm wrench to take that out, and then just slide the ring terminal onto the bolt, make it look like the factory grounds, and that'll be it. Now this ground connection has been made, got it nice and secured. I use the second one just because it's easier for me to fit my socket wrench onto this bolt here, but it's nice and secure. We've got a good chassis ground. Now at this point everything has been connected. All the connections have been made. So before we do the final step, which will be securing all the wiring down with the zip ties and making sure nothing's flopping around or anything like that, but this is a perfect time to go ahead and test the system to make sure that everything works. All right, so now we're looking at the same wall we were at the beginning of the video. I'm going to turn the lights on. You guys can see how fast these start up. and we'll see how bright they are. There you go. And you can see there's a nice sharp cutoff band, just like the factory ones. And also it's much brighter. Now, the camera that I'm using will distort the color a little bit. On the wall it actually looked a little bit blue, but these are white. These are just white. There's not a hint of blue in these lights at all. You can see we got a nice bright white light now. It looks much better on the vehicle, especially this nice blue Camry here. It looks much better than the factory halogens. I've just secured all of the wiring for the relay harness and the rest of the HID system. So remember, you don't want things flapping around or hanging and wobbling or anything like that. So you want to make sure that everything's secured nicely. The kit comes with zip ties. Probably the most challenging thing to mount is the ballast, or I'm sorry, not the ballast, but the relay pack here. It just turns out that you can slip a zip tie in this factory plastic mounting bracket for the fuse box here, and it doesn't interfere with the fuse box. You can still open it up, it's just fine. And you can lock in the mounting tab for the relay pack with the zip tie there, and that's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and secure. Also, the cable that runs across to the passenger side, I've secured it to the battery tie down here with a zip tie. You can also see that this is much more difficult to see. I've tied the wires with the zip tie down here. These are the cables that are coming out of the ballast, out of the bottom side of the ballast, and secured it to a factory harness, which is down here. And I've also secured it in such a way that it's not touching the airbag sensor. Usually yellow means airbag, so don't touch that. Leave it alone. There's a good finger gap here, and the ballast is nice and secure. It's not going to go anywhere. And again, I'll cut these. Make sure you cut these when you're done, but I left them on so you can actually see what I'm doing. We already covered this. Running it on the other side, that's not going to go anywhere. Coming out the other side here, I've taken the connector that comes out of the ballast and just secured it to a factory harness and secured this connector here, so it's nice and snug, not going to move around too much. I've also fed the igniter for the ballast over here by the ABS sensor, and just try to clean up some of the wires here, tied it down. Makes for a decent installation, and now you're all done. Just one more thing, make sure you put back the factory battery cap here. So after you've taken it off, make sure you put it back on, lock it in secure, just to prevent anything from touching the positive terminal of the battery. It always helps to double check all of your wiring, make sure that all the connections are secure, nothing's going to fall apart, and enjoy. If you have any questions about the installation or anything else related to the HID system, go ahead and leave a comment below and I'll do my best to try to answer your question. But for now, just go ahead and enjoy the new lights. You can purchase this kit from www.enlightauto.com. Go to the Browse by Vehicle section and look for the 2015 Toyota Camry. You can also check out some of our other videos where we'll do interior LEDs and also some LED license plate bulbs on this same vehicle. Thanks for watching.